One thing to know about square taper cranks and bottom brackets is that the taper is an important word. If you look at the bottom bracket, you can see how it's smaller in the front and it gets bigger in the back. And if you look at the square on the crank as well, it's smaller in the front than it is in the back. And what can happen is if your crank bolt isn't installed properly, the crank can start kind of like wiggling down the taper, and then it has more room on the back because the back is bigger than the front, and it starts wiggling around even more. And what it does is it messes up. See how nice and sharp this square is? If it comes down the taper and is like subjected to the pressure of you riding on it, it starts wiggling around and malforming the inner square. If that happens, it can cause your crank arm to fall off. And it's common in a bike shop for people to bring their crank arm that has fallen off and be like, can you please put this back on? But unfortunately, when this inner part gets damaged and blown up like that, it can no longer fit tight on the taper itself, and so the crank arm would have to be replaced. For whatever reason, it's more common for the left arms to fall off than the right arms with all of the shifting junk on it. So it's usually pretty affordable to get like a left arm replaced as long as it's the same like length and taper orientation, kind of roughly similar to the crank that you have. But the taper itself is an important feature of the square taper crank.